When a sliver of cold moonlight in the deep night of ancient Europe slanted across the undulating, wave-like meadows of the Celtic highlands, the air was steeped in the faint fragrance of earth and the bittersweet scent of wildflowers dampened by night dew. At the edge of a forest surrounded by ancient oaks, where the distant sound of hoofbeats approached and then slowly faded into the void, a woman draped in a grass-green robe, her eyes reflecting a profound sense of universal desolation, sat in absolute stillness, opening her empty hands. She was not awaiting the sacrifices of her tribes. Instead, within the sanctuary of her mind, sharpened by eons of patrolling the mountain ranges, she chewed over the philosophical metaphors of ancient druidic lore regarding samsara and the cycle of rebirth. She was Epona, the white horse goddess of Celtic mythology, an intellectual watcher who chose solitude at the periphery of divine power, exiling herself to the rift between reality and dreams for thousands of years. This is a chronicle of how restraint erupts into power, and how silence is transmutated into nobility. The genesis of Epona's life held none of the characteristic roars of a war god. Instead, it was a deep blue foundation woven from the rhythm of growing things and the haunting neighs of white horses within the emerald shadows of the primordial forest. As a maiden born with a near-pathological craving for biological harmony, she inherited a microcosm that was ruthlessly cold, governed by the strictness of natural contracts and the complex gambits of the seasons. Amidst altars crimsoned by the glow of starlight, she learned to use her gaze to perceive the life structures lurking behind every vanishing point. She rejected the pursuit of favor within shallow divine banquets, turning instead to the embrace of scrolls steeped in the scent of herbs, realms capable of measuring the true breadth of the soul. This relentless pursuit of existential truth became the first incurable fold in her psyche, and the only armor that would guard her reality in a world of chaos. If her early vigils were the tempering of her will, then the moment she decided to designate the white horse as the messenger linking the living to the world of dreams was the practical crucible that pushed Epona's aesthetics of restraint to its absolute zenith. She overthrew the prevailing divine fashions of violent suppression, resolutely transforming the gallop of horses into a steady rhythmic cadence. She sought to replace the endless shrieks of tormented souls with the long, low thrum of hoofbeats. In those quiet nights, she issued silent commands that stabilized the Celtic order through ruthlessly precise calculations of soul fluctuations and dream topographies. This mode of psychopomp required no smoke of battle, yet it transformed the act of watching into an intellectual long march played out in the rhythm of a breath. In those moments, Epona was the most sober and solitary artisan of all Europa, like a marble bell tower, solitary and soaring, yet indestructible. The summit of power in the eyes of the wise is often manifested as the penetration of truth. Epona gradually realized that when she was eventually adopted as a guardian deity by the expanding Roman Empire, she had obtained not just faith, but a nihilistic clarity that saw through the rise and fall of all things. Within that stone chamber deep in the forest, filled with the scent of amber and piled high with manuscripts, she silently observed the minute failings of tribes that had once elevated or betrayed her. This transition, returning from deity to watcher, was fraught with intellectual struggle, yet it endowed her with a cold, almost translucent peace. She remarked in a psychic resonance, "I once believed I was building the future, now I find I am merely searching for a point of convergence within the scarred fissures of memory, where the soul no longer falls." This expansive clarity, born of witnessing the ebb and flow of empires, became her hardest armor in her later years. The final season of Epona was spent in a state of profound solemnity and a silence illuminated by the radiance of a sage. It was the early autumn of the mythic era. The fine rains of the Alps fell soundlessly. By then, the goddess's body had become remarkably weightless from eons of vigil. Her once heavy silk robe now hung loosely upon her slender frame. She understood that the age of innocence belonging to her world was drawing to its close, and that she, the witness of order, would soon be buried in the dust of legend. In her final conscious moments, she requested that time lead her to the window, to listen one last time to the hoofbeats, a melody belonging to her inner self, with no audience but the void. She closed her eyes, tracing a final arc of completion across her chest. The evening breeze carried away the final sigh of this great hermit, marking the official end of the classical ideal. Even today, 2 millennia after the myths faded, the name Epona remains the sole sanctuary for many insomniac seekers in the deep of night. What she left behind was not a towering monument of triumph, but a spiritual template of self-restraint and civilizational vigil. She teaches us that even if the entire world besieges you with turmoil, the order of your inner self remains governed by your perception of truth. In absolute shadow, she maintained absolute sobriety. Amidst absolute temptation, she held onto absolute logic. Beneath the forest ruins worn smooth by history, she maintains that posture of leaning her head to listen, as if still soothing this increasingly restless and anxious world. Her life was an intellectual long march seeking sacred rhythms amidst the chaotic dust of the world. Epona's story thus draws to a slow close amidst the fading hoofbeats in the wilderness. She was never a political opportunist seeking fame, She was merely a weary soul who steadfastly refused to compromise with mediocrity. Inner tranquility is your only true and eternal refuge. Just as she did during the coldest winter nights of the Celtic lands, guarding a flickering candle and searching for a fulcrum of existence through the void. Please believe that in every person's life, there is a white horse of their own, a private space for dialogue with a self that requires no outward explanation. Tonight's story is over. May Epona's serenity and vastness become the softest feather in your dreams, carrying you to the farthest, most tranquil shore of the soul. Good night, and may sweet dreams be with you.